Hi everybody, we're just going to wait a few minutes until we get a few people join us before we begin.
Hello, Molls.
Hi Gems.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
I'm depressed. No, I'm great, thank you. I've had a wonderful day. How's yours been?
Yeah, interesting, up and down. Yeah, a few challenges today, but all good.
What, there weren't people, were they?
They were people.
No.
People were peopling today.
Ourselves. Right, let's get everybody in. I'm just gonna share the space. And welcome. What are we second week so far of January, second spaces.
Yeah, second spaces of the year.
And I don't know, it doesn't feel as sort of cold and miserable as I've felt in previous years. I don't know if that's because we're all sort of making the most of being outside, but it just feels
That's interesting.
quite free. Quite free.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something I'm going to talk about on the call tonight. Is like, can the weather make our moods? So it's funny you said that.
So, hi Wall, hi Revelations, hi Estival. We've got lots of friendly faces. Hi Cody. Um, so, most of you have been in here before. Today, we're here basically just to share a journey that we've both been on for. Well, I've been on it for 4 years with Molls now, and Molls has been teaching this for quite a long time, and it's made such a difference in our lives. We thought we'd start the Unminding project, which has been going for a good few months now. We're very fortunate to be sponsored by Cope, and we've had a few donations from some lovely people. So anybody that wants to help us out, feel free. We'll post some links at the top. I'll do that throughout the call. And yeah, basically, we're here to share with everybody. We've got a free Telegram group for people. And today we're going to talk about depression, and we're going to share as much as we can. And Molls, over to you, really, just to give a brief overview of why we're here and what we do.
Hi everybody. Yeah, we've been doing this for a few months now. We did have a break, but we're back again, and we haven't actually done a deep dive into depression yet. We did anxiety. We've done stuff on thoughts and more generalized stuff, but I thought probably, January. With everything that's going on in the world, it might be a good time to do one on depression. So here we are. I think Jem's quite honest. She's suffered with it. I suffered from it. Can I still get low moods even though I understand the mind a lot better and I understand who we are? Absolutely. Do I get as caught up in them? Absolutely not. Can I still get caught up? Yes. So really what we're looking at here is a new way of looking, for most people anyway, at what moods are, where our feelings come from, what are our emotions, what is mental health. And, we've said on the other spaces, but what's different here is that rather than looking at the problem coming from your life or from your past or from somebody in your life or from an event or from something that belief that you have about yourself that you think is real, we begin to unpack that and say that, maybe a feeling is coming from a different place than you think it is. Low moods, depression, apathy, low motivation, grief, sadness. There's all different kind of names for low mood, but we're all pointing to the fact that we'll feel crappy. We may not want to get out of bed. We'll feel low. We won't want to do anything. And some people may call that depression. Some people may call that a low mood. Some people may really identify with that. For some people, it would just be a passing thing. But when we really look at it, we begin to see it a little bit differently when we look at it from this perspective, from this understanding. And we start to see that what we've tried to do in the past is get more into character to find out what's going on. So for me, in my depression, it was very much there was something from my past, there was something wrong with my life. It was like there was something I had to work out. So Molls had to work something out to not be depressed. And what I saw that actually took me out of depression was that wasn't true. It was actually all the stuff I'd made up about myself that looked real that was causing it. I didn't have to go into that. I just had to see it as not true anymore. So it wasn't like any past events had to not be true, or any beliefs had to not be true from the place of my character. It was actually dissecting the character to the point where it just wasn't real anymore. And that happened for me by having a deep insight into thought. So I hope some of you have been on our other calls. If not, I advise you to maybe listen to some earlier ones, or we go really much more into these 3 principles which I teach, which are mind, consciousness and thought. So when I came across these, I began to kind of do a deep dive, and I was not in a great place. I probably had mental health issues for around 7 years. And when I saw it, my depression went away. My anxiety went away. It was really like night and day. And I saw that every experience I'd ever had, everything that looked like it was a problem, everything that looked like it was me or my past, was actually a thought in my head in that moment. And that just became such a deep insight. It gave me such freedom. And this is why we share this, is because we want to give this freedom to others. So what it looked like to me before I saw that was that freedom would come from a specific set of circumstances. So freedom would come from my life looking better. Freedom would come from my mind being okay. Freedom would come from me having the right relationship, or more money, or whatever it might have been that I was making up, that I had applied a belief around freedom to. And what I came to understand was that actually none of that was true. That requirement of a circumstance for freedom is actually a prison. And it's a prison that led me into anxiety and depression. So, you've got this paradox of you get really stuck in the story that isn't true, trying to fix the story that isn't true with more untruth, and you kind of spiral down. So again, these low moods, these depressions, these apathies, what I see them now is, if I do get a low mood, is I know it's thought in the moment. I know that the thinking that I'm having is creating this feeling. I don't try and apply it and try and fix the world for me to feel better. I know that this thought system is rising. In that moment, it's creating the feeling of depression or sadness, and then it will fall away. And what I never do anymore is identify with it that, like, I'm Molls and I'm depressed. Because if you look at that's a real identification. You're adding another layer to the character. If you are feeling that, what I would say that one of the best things to do is that to just say, you're having low thinking, I'm having depressed thinking. So you're not as attached to it. You're not owning it as much. It becomes something that's happening to you briefly, rather than something that's really held on and tight. Something that's really says who you are. Because ultimately, a feeling doesn't say anything about who you are. A thought doesn't say anything about who you are. The worst thought that you can have in the world says nothing about you. It's just coming and going, ebbing and flowing. So does freedom come from feeling better, or is freedom always present? Now, I'm sure some of you may disagree with me, but I would suggest that freedom is always present, but we don't always feel it. So freedom is innately who we are, but our thought systems, our ideas, our beliefs are what cover it up and make it look like it's something to get. So ultimately, freedom is something, it's like our true nature. Now, what I don't also want to do is discount feelings. I know how shit it can feel to feel depressed. I know how shit it can feel to be really anxious. I'm not discounting and saying, well, we just don't worry about it. And it's just not true. That when we're feeling it, it's very intense, it's very heavy, it's very consuming. But if I'm working with someone, if I can turn them away from the identification with depression, if I can just start to open the door for them to see it in a slightly different way, then things start to change for them. Because ultimately what people have been doing hasn't been working, because we wouldn't be in an epidemic of mental illness, which we are. So it's very much a case of just people looking from the outside in. So the world is creating their feeling, the event, the past, the childhood, whatever it may be. We're looking away from that as creating the feeling to see that it's just coming through moment to moment. And why is that incredibly helpful? It's really, really helpful because what it does is, if your past and if you believe your past has damaged you, then that belief is creating that feeling. And it will look really real that it's the past. If I can show you that the belief is made of thought and not true, you can be free of the past. So that depression that has that appearance of being so real can suddenly be, okay, that's coming from my thought system in the moment. And an example of that is you can get two people grow up in the same family, two siblings, they experience the same thing, the same parents, the same events, the same traumas. And one will thrive and one will be a victim. Now, that has to be something deeper than what's happened to them, because otherwise they will both react in the same way. And lots of things in the world can happen to people. You know, I deal with people. People go through real traumas, but what happens after the trauma comes from them. Are they really identifying it with it? Are they a victim of it, or do they have freedom? You know, is that freedom coming because they can see that actually it's not happening anymore? It happened. I am now in a different moment where it's not happening, and it's only created by my thought system. So again, we've got it's kind of, we want to walk a fine line here where we're not discounting the feelings because we know how bad they are, but we almost want to show you them in a different way. So it's like an exploration. And what I said to everybody that I work with is, let's just explore this and see if it's true. And if it is, I can guarantee you'll start to feel lighter. You will find some ease. You know, the mind starts to settle down. Once the mind stops searching for the answer to the problem, it will settle. A lot of the problem is that we're trying, you know, I say this again, probably on most calls, we're trying to use the mind to cure the mind. So we feel depressed, we feel bad, and then we're trying to find the answer why. Well, we're adding more thought, and thought creates feeling. So we get these layers and layers and layers of thought feeling. And these layers just end up making us feel bad. You know, every layer of thought is another layer of heaviness. So eventually it feels like we're buried in all this unhelpful, unhealthy thinking. So it can be scary to look at these feelings because what's interesting with mental illness, we spend a lot of time resisting them. There can be a lot of resistance to a feeling. It can be, I shouldn't be feeling that. I don't want to feel that. How can I, you know, we've talked about addictions before, but it's trying to escape the feeling. We spend a lot of time trying to escape the feelings that we don't like, which actually creates more problems. If we can actually sit with the feeling and stop being scared of it and actually observe it and explore it and see if it's true, then that can start to change things. So the mental state, the thoughts, the beliefs, the behaviours, the habits, all of those things, what I try to help you see is they're not who you are. You know, they're not. They're just things that we do. And we all have them. It's part of being human. But it's the story of you. It's not the truth of you. It's the character. It's what you've created. It's what you've identified with. It's what you've believed about yourself. You know, and so we have these layers of untruths. And we have these lives, and we get caught up, and we have traumas, and we have suffering, and we have problems, and we have all of these things. It's like, no wonder it can be really easy to get caught up and to feel bad when we look at what can happen in life. And if you really think about, we often feel that life shouldn't have problems, so we really resist it. We feel that life shouldn't have suffering, so we resist it. And if we can really see the truth of life, it looks to me that as a human being, we're always going to have problems. We're going to have suffering. We're going to have disharmony. It's part of the human experience. So when we see that and we stop resisting that, we can then also experience life's ups and downs with more flow, more ease, more grace, because We're not going into it thinking, well, this shouldn't be happening. Life's supposed to be happy, wonderful all the time. Well, it can be happy and wonderful a lot of the time, but for every human, they're going to go through their problems, their grief, their sadness. What happens from how I see it is when the depression takes hold is when we really resist that, when we really see that shouldn't be happening, when we really get caught up in all the thinking that we have around that. So there is always room for fresh thought. There is always room for seeing things differently. But as I said, it has to be explored and it has to be observed. And we have to step back from our resistance to it. Again, we have such ideas about what should and shouldn't happen in our lives. And when they don't go the way we think that they should go, which is also something we've made up, that's when we can have these depressions. It's like, well, it's not supposed to be like this. I went through it last year. There was something in my life where I thought that, I was kind of certain my life would look a certain way with a certain person, and it didn't work out. And it really hit me. So I didn't deny the feeling. I said, well, it's all an illusion. It's not happening. I acknowledged that I was feeling that there was a sense of grief around it. There was an upset around it. But I also had this understanding which allowed me to go through it a little bit easier than maybe I would have previously. It's because it just gave me that understanding that that's what was meant to happen. That was how it was supposed to be. And life would take care of itself. Again, a lot of times when we get depressed is we feel we lose our trust with life. A low mood can really disconnect us from our faith, our trust, because we're resisting. We're saying it shouldn't be like that. A deep acceptance of all that is freedom. A deep acceptance of everything that's happened to us is freedom. A deep acceptance of how we feel in the moment is freedom. So again, it's not saying, I really want to make this clear, I'm not discounting the bad feelings. I know how bad it can feel. But I also know that my recovery came from seeing this. It wasn't from traditional therapy. It wasn't from an analysis of my own thinking on my past. It came from a much deeper place. It didn't come from the story of who I was. It didn't become from the story of who I was. The freedom came from knowing that I was a story. Okay, that's so important. It literally is night and day when you actually begin to explore it. So we have this life and all the wins and all the fails and all the emotions and all the events, all the thoughts, all the feelings, everything that exists in our human state. But when we begin to see that they're just experiences happening to us, rather than telling us something about ourselves, it becomes easier. So a win and a fail, well, that's part of life. For those that are on the call that are in cryptos, you have your green days, you have your red days. This is nothing about you. It's what the market's doing. But people in this world can really identify. They can be really down, when, the market's tanked, I feel terrible. Well, what's that got to do with you? Why would we feel in a low mood or depressed? And again, I want to make the distinction here. I know that there can be really the levels of depression from a really deep, dark, manic depressive state to just, I'm having a bad day, I'm in a low mood. We are aware that these can be very different. I'm very aware that some people will need to take medication. I'm never against that. It's like whatever you need to do. But alongside that, I always suggest an exploration of this nature to try and find true freedom. Because there will be a point where when you explore this, where you see it, that the world starts to change. And it's not that actually the world changes, it's that your mood has changed. You begin to lift up, you begin to see it differently, you begin to lighten up. Gem said, as we got on the call, about, I'm feeling good considering it's January and the weather. And it's like, that's so interesting. That's just another layer of thought and belief. What do we apply our thoughts and beliefs to around our moods? Can the weather create a mood? Well, we've been happy on rainy, cloudy days and we've been sad on sunny days, so it's not the weather. So again, it's just unpacking it all and starting to see that, where is my mood coming from? Where is this sadness coming from? Maybe I'm meant to feel sad right now. Maybe I don't need to give it meaning. Maybe I don't have to apply it to anything in my world or my past. Maybe it just simply is in this moment a sad feeling. Now, what happens when I do that? See, again, this is what I say. Let's just play with this. Let's just play with what it could look like if we just accepted a feeling. We didn't try and give it meaning. We didn't try and apply it to any section of our lives, and we just saw it. We observed it. We said, okay, this is sadness. This is my visitor today. Okay? So again, we don't want to... Yeah, this is quite interesting, actually. So what we do when... So I have a low mood. If I identify it with something in my world or my past, I'm securing it. Does that make sense? It's like I'm attaching it, I'm securing it, I'm making it much more real. If I say that it's passing, it's fleeting, it's thought in the moment. So again, thought and feeling are two sides of the same coin. We have a thought in our head, we have the feeling to correspond. So if we can see that, and we're having this thought feeling in the moment, and we don't have to identify it to anything, it can be free to move on. If I identify that feeling with the world or with my past, which I cannot change, then where's it got to go? It's going to hold on. You know, there's a big difference here in how we see it. It's one is solidifying it. You know, so actually, this is a great way of describing it. So one is, if I just see it as thought in the moment and don't identify it, it's like a river flowing. It's water flowing. If I identify it and make it into anything, it's like an icicle. It's fixed, it's stuck. So there's those two ways of seeing this one energy. Am I identifying with the feeling, making it solid, making it into ice? Or am I not identifying with the feeling? Am I letting it flow and it's being like water? As the old Bruce Lee quote goes, be like water. There's so much truth in a lot of the old teachings and in a lot of wisdom out there that we can hear around this understanding and these kind of ways of looking at the world and looking at life and looking at who we are. So, as I said, we don't want to secure the feeling. How do we secure the feeling? We're doing that by identifying with it. So I have a bad feeling. Well, it's because I've lost a trade. I have a bad feeling. It's because my relationship's ended. I have a bad feeling because A, B, C, or D. It's whatever. Think that for a moment, maybe, but at some point, undo that. So, okay, I have a bad feeling because that's the feeling that thought is giving me in this moment. Full stop. It changes it. Suddenly we're free from all the bullshit that we tell ourselves about why we feel how we feel. You know, we're not securing the feeling then. We're not going deeper and deeper and deeper into a depression. In fact, if anything, it should start to lift. And also what you'll find is when you do that, you don't tend to be as stuck. You tend to get on with your day. It's like, oh, well, I just feel like this. I'm just going to get on with my day. Whereas the other way, it's like, oh, kind of shut yourself away. You move from that hiding away to that living anyway, because you know a thought and a feeling is transient and it's going to pass by. The other thing is, when we really go deeper, we can begin to see that what we're doing with the suffering is we can catch ourselves. How do I explain this? We get a chance to catch ourselves doing what we're doing, so repeating the stories and the characters. So for me, the things from my past that I would say I feel like that because obviously that happened when I was a kid, or I had that thing happened. Oh, that thought's flaring up, so I feel bad. That old memory. I can tell you those memories come up now. They're just thoughts. They're just gone. It's not. They don't feel like they even happen to me anymore. It's like there's no identification for me there with the suffering that I've experienced in the past. Again, more freedom. So actually, those low moods, those low feelings can teach us a lot about ourselves. You know, it's just unfortunate that everybody's become so self-reflective in the wrong ways. They're not self-reflective in the sense of going to the depths of who we are. They're self-reflective in the way of constantly looking at the content of who they are, the made up stuff, the character, the beliefs, the behaviors, the habits. Oh, so if you have a bad habit and you do it and you feel depressed and you keep doing it, it's like you're going to blame yourself. That self-blame is going to lead to you feeling even worse. If you begin to see that it's just thought playing out, it cuts it. It clears it. It doesn't carry on. We're cutting the circuit. We do this work, we begin to see that thoughts and feelings aren't personal anymore. And that can be a little bit scary, and it can seem a bit daunting because we get so caught up in the idea of who we are, but the impersonal nature of it is so freeing. It makes us feel so light. It makes us feel so at peace. So these feelings that you're searching for outside of yourself already exist within you. So the feelings of peace, of security, of love, they're who you are, of happiness. We get so lost, so searching for them outside of ourselves, that we forget. It's like amnesia. We've forgotten who we are. We've forgotten that we're all of those things. And then we get so lost and we get so caught up when we have these bad feelings, and we resist the feelings, and that creates more bad feeling and the bad habits, and you then begin to see the cycle that we're on. This kind of endless loop of, oh God, of course that's why I felt bad. I believed all that bullshit about myself. I really thought it was me creating the thinking, creating the feeling. It was just what was happening to me. Who I am is deeper. I'm the observer of all that. I can begin to see it differently. I begin to see who I am. I begin to uncover that piece. I begin to not identify with the depression and the sadness and the stories. So we let go of the worries about the future. We let go of the worries about the past. Of course, we have them momentarily. I still get them. I still get caught up. I still get upset, but it's much more fleeting. It's much less identification with it. I know it's not personal anymore. If I do get caught, when I come out of it, I don't beat myself up over it. I begin to see that, okay, that was just what was coming through in that moment. I was doing the best that I could with the thinking in my head. All of you are doing the best that you can with the thinking in your head. But there is another way. There's a way to begin to see it differently. There's a way to explore who you are, to uncover this freedom. And as I said, you don't have to believe me. Just take a look at it. Join the group. Read a book. Stay in these spaces. At first you may not hear it, but at some point there may be a moment where it clicks and you begin to hear it and you begin to see it differently. And I pretty much guarantee that anyone that gets on the call or listens to this is ready to hear it. There's something in you that's ready to hear this, ready to see it differently, ready to allow life to kind of be fresh again, to have some fresh thought come through, and to not listen to that old hamster wheel thinking that goes round and round and round and tells you a load of bullshit. It's nothing to do with you. When I saw for myself that my thinking wasn't me, it was such a relief. I felt so bad about some of the thoughts that I had when I was in my depression and anxiety and my breakdown. It was like some of the thoughts were so disturbing. I was like, what kind of person has this thinking? It's like, I must be so shit. I must be such a bad person. I was so identified with it. When I saw it wasn't true, oh my God, that in itself was freedom. That began such a deep change in me, because suddenly I saw that, oh my God, actually I'm not that. Like, we're all these perfect divine humans having this experience. Thought is constantly coming and going, shitloads of it, 100,000 thoughts a day, coming and going and coming and going. Now, none of them say anything about who you are, but unfortunately what happens when we don't understand that is when we get the nasty ones and the bad ones, we identify with them, we hold on to them, they bring us down. Then we fall down the spiral, we fall down the rabbit hole, we go to the dark place, we get the depressions, we get the low moods, we get the sadness, we get really caught up. But actually there's a way out. Again, it's like I really want anyone, if anyone is on this call or is listening, is in depression or has had depression for a long time, I promise you there is help, there is an answer. You know, it may not happen straight away, but take your time and listen. Begin to look at it differently. Begin to explore. Begin to notice what's present. You know, who are you? What happens when you're just present to the feeling? You don't believe them. You don't resist them. You don't identify with them. You don't think there's a you that's creating them. It just begins to change it. It's like let go of what happens again when we go into mental illness is this control, this need for control kicks in because again, we don't want to feel it. We don't want to feel bad. We're all searching for happiness. We all want to feel happy. So when we get that depressed feeling, it's this control comes in. We want to control the mind. We want to control the world. We've got to fix it. You can never ever fix it. Not in the way that you think. Not by going out in that direction. The fixing it becomes something you do by coming home to who you really are. You don't need to control. You know, no matter how deeply you see this, you're going to have bad feelings or what we identify as bad feelings. They are all just feelings. Like all thought is just thought, whatever it's saying. All feeling is just feeling, whatever it's doing. But when we used to get the bad feeling, we'd want to go into this control narrative. And again, we took back to like nature. When we look at the seasons, we allow spring, summer, autumn, winter. We know that there's seasons out there. We don't control it. It's like, oh God, it shouldn't be winter. Oh, it shouldn't be autumn. I need to go around and I need to stick all the leaves back on the trees again because this shouldn't be happening. So it's that. It's like acceptance, an acceptance of how you feel while exploring the depth of who you really are, rather than control and resistance, because they don't work. You're just adding actually more bad feeling with control and resistance. So again, it can be really, really scary, and I really understand it. I don't want you to think there's too much for you to do with this understanding. It is a listening. You know, it can be scary to think we've got to let go or we've got to accept that we feel this way. But we all know, or those of us that have had those experiences of depression, we know trying to control it or fix it didn't work. If anything, if you've had it and come out of it, you notice that it probably changed on its own. You probably had new thinking and saw something differently. What this understanding creates is the space for new thinking and seeing things differently. So we don't run around, we don't get lost. Again, we don't try and pin the leaves back on the trees. There's nothing to fix. So imagine the energy saved and the peace found just by not trying to fix things anymore, just by letting them be. And this isn't denial. You know, as I said, it's not denial. It's not spiritual bypass. It's us looking a bit deeper at what's true. It's like we know what we feel, but we explore the truth of its existence and not the never-ending content of our minds. And all of this, knowing all of this, uncovering all of this is wisdom. It's not the intellect. It's nothing for you to learn in your mind. We want to release the mind. We don't want to add more to the mind. What this is, the wisdom of truth being allowed to come through you. The wisdom of truth healing you, calming your mind, showing you what's true. And I know it's true because it's what changed for me, and Gem knows it's true because it's what's changed for her. And I know there's a couple of other people on this call that's what happened for them too. So we stop looking outward, we stop looking at the thoughts, beliefs, behaviours, habits, all of the things, the past, the future, the world. There's only one place to look, and that's within. The deeper we go, the freer we become. And then we get really comfortable with being human. So I'm comfortable with my crazy days, my sad days, my anxious moments. I know where it's coming from now. So I don't have to get caught up in it. I don't spend any time trying to fix it. I'm just, that's my experience. That's what's on the table right now. Of course, would I like to be 100% joyous all the time? Probably. But I know that I'm going to get moods. I'm going to get feelings. The world's going to have its appearance of upsetting me. But there'll be a moment where I see it's not the world. There'll be a moment where I see it's coming from me. We're the creator of all our experiences, all our feelings. It's like it's coming from us, and that isn't the separate self, the identity. I'm talking about something deeper here. That depth of who we are is creating our experience, and call it consciousness, whatever your name for it is. And when we begin to see that, when we begin to allow that, we live freely, because again, we let go of all that control that we thought we needed to have, that we never really had. And we begin to allow this wisdom of truth and knowing to come through, and to live in the moment, which really is a wonderful thing, to be present. I think I've been talking for, 40 minutes. I've been talking for ages. So I hope Gem is ready to say something. And if you have any questions, please let Gem know. Let me unco-host. So sometimes we have a problem with Gem. Okay, she should be coming back now. I'll carry on talking for a bit anyway. Right, I've added Gem. I don't know what's going on, so I will just talk. Has anyone got any questions? Oh, I think Gem's back. Are you back, Gem? Soul, can I add you? Yeah, you just came in as I said that. Invite to co-host. Hi, Soul. How you doing? Oh, I'm having all these tech issues suddenly, and I'm not a tech person. Right. Has anyone got any questions that I can bring up and have a little chat to? Soul, you're on. Hi, Soul. Yeah, how are you?
Wonderful. Thank you. So,
Good.
I think I already know how you'll answer this, but I think it's a interesting thing to think about anyways. So you're talking about thoughts, feelings, and not identifying with them, that they aren't who you are. You're the being experiencing all this. And so my question is, we have these thoughts, these memories of our past, our traumas, and would you say that are we still that person that experienced those thoughts, those feelings, those traumas? You know, we're thinking back to these memories. Are we still that person, or would you say that we're someone else at this present moment?
Well, I'd say that the identity is always made up. So I'm pretty sure that we're always playing a character. So at the deepest sense, yes, absolutely, we're the same person. At the sense of the fact that we're ever changing, probably not the same person. You know, me from 13 years old to 50 years old is a different person. Very different. Now, there'll be some characteristics, of course, that's the same, but we are different in character. Now, the essence of who we are is eternal and unchanging. So it's an interesting question. Now, what's interesting to me about this is, if we believe in the memory and really identify with it, can we revert back to that person in a bad state of mind? Yes. So what I mean by that is, something happened to you when you were 13 and you were abandoned and you feel really, you have abandonment issues. You can be completely rational and fine, but something triggers that and you'll probably revert back to that kind of behavior and those feelings. Yeah. When you understand what we are teaching here, that can still happen. Don't get me wrong, but there'll be a moment where you kind of really wake up to what you're doing. You'll be like, I know what I'm doing here. What's that about? And you'll just snap out of it. So again, it's so interesting. What the mind is so incredibly powerful. That's what we have to remember. It's like the best special effects department in the world. It will create and make look real whatever we're thinking. So we have like the screen of the television, the consciousness, and the movie of thought lighting it up. So that's why people can get really, really caught up in memories and really, PTSD and memory returning, the feelings returning with it. Now, that isn't happening in the moment in PTSD. That's coming through afterwards. What's creating that? The power of the mind. People go to hospitals thinking they're having heart attacks. No, it's a panic attack. What's creating it? The power of the mind. We're talking about something incredibly powerful here. So the deeper we understand what it is, the better. The deeper we understand what it is, the easier it is for us to observe what it's saying without getting caught up. Although we will still get caught up. Again, that's always going to happen. Thank you for your question. I hope that helped.
No, that was a perfect answer.
Brilliant. Thank
myself, I have a similar understanding, I think. So I believe that we are similar to what you're saying. We are both that person and we are not. And so, all energy is constant, but it is also ebbing and flowing, and we ourselves are energy. And so who we are is constant, but at the same time, we're also reverting and then growing further. And that's a constant process. Nothing in your life is ever unchanging and consistent. It's always ebbing and flowing, coming in, going out. And in that process it's a growing process is what it is to me. And so, like you said, we are that person, but we aren't that person. We are, at this present moment, we're far more than what we were in our past. But that person is still within us. And of course the goal is to always be growing further. But as you said, it's quite easy to revert back to what we were. It's just understanding, and I wouldn't say it's gaining control of it, but it is, I think, like what you say, it's identifying that thought, that feeling in the moment, and understanding that, oh, well, this isn't who I am currently. This is what I have felt.
Yeah, it's just so easy to get it lost. And is it really lost? We're having this illusion constantly. We are consciousness taking form moment to moment to moment to moment to moment to moment. And that's going to look like so many different things, as it should, as is the experience of life, and do I want to deny any of that? I quite like, it's fun being human a lot of the time. And we get to experience so many different things. But when we understand this, when we have the background noise of knowing that it's consciousness creating it in the moment, that there's something deeper, and this who I am isn't even here, let alone what I think it is. That we play it with more ease and more grace. So for me, it's just, and when you said the goal, I think you said something like the goal is to see it deeper or to evolve more. I don't even know if I have that goal anymore. I think that used to be my goal, like there was somewhere to get to. Now it feels a little bit more to me like there's just life to experience. And that is going to look like things that I want, things that I don't want, things that I like, things that I don't like. Life's always going to show me those things. It's going to look like moments of depression, moments of happiness, moments of anxiety. It's going to look like everything. But there's something that's been uncovered for me and for many on this call that has shown us something different. Has shown us the depth of it, the truth of it. So we get to play with it more. And I think if anything, what the principles, what non-duality, what all these things that I've looked at over the years have given me is more playfulness. And also that when I get caught in that humanness, when I get caught in the sadness or the depression or the anxiety, or say I have an argument with someone, it doesn't happen often, but say that does happen, it's like I'm over it in seconds. There isn't anything to hold on to anymore. There's just like a new moment being revealed with me being revealed in it. So it's for someone maybe that's on the call that's just come and is new to it and is just depressed. It's really good just to start to look at and observe thought and just to turn away from your stories of who you think you are. But the deeper you go, the more is uncovered. And I think to say that's a goal, I wouldn't put it in those terms, but to say it's an exploration maybe is a more beautiful way, because we don't want to believe that there's a destination, because for me the destination is the moment. So yeah, it's so interesting, and again I'll uncover and see differently and see more. This is the nature of it. How it looked 5 years ago is different to how it looks today. How it looked yesterday is how it is different to how it looks today. But to come on and just begin to, like, for me and Gem, for the issues that we've had in our lives around mental health, to come on and to begin to explore with people that maybe have never heard of what we do, and to offer them a hand and to say, look, have you thought about looking at this way, is just a gift for us and a gift for you guys, because you can begin to see it differently, and it isn't a temporary fix, or it's something that will uncover great beauty in your world. So yeah, thank you for speaking. So I really appreciate it. I don't know what's happening with Gem tonight. She can't seem to stay on. So I have lost my co-host and I am a terrible technophobe. So I think someone here has requested. I will try and add. Hello, Yahtzee. Are you there? Can you unmute? Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you. How can I help you?
Well, I don't know. Can't seem to put it into words actually at the moment. I was just too invested in what you were talking about, and I find that very enlightening. You're saying words of gold right now, actually. Many go lifetimes without realizing what actually is going on and, to actually process things. And just like to thank you at first for hosting a space like this.
Thank you for speaking. I appreciate it. Thank you.
And thank you for having me. Now,
you're welcome.
I do want to share a snippet of my life. I'm not going to go on with this. It's not going to be a long story or anything, but it's just something that I learned. Okay. I've been around the world, been in many environments. I've made a lot of friends. I've lived different lives. And when you said, you are the same person 13 years ago, or when you're 13 years and then you're 50 years or whatever, you're still the same person. essentially, you know, that deep inside. It's the same core. You could say maybe different body, right? Your mind is just,
Very different.
yeah, yeah. But like also that applies to some and doesn't apply to others. Because like the way I see it is like there will always be a version of me living somewhere in someone's mind from 13 years ago, right? And I could never change that.
Yeah.
In my head, I will always have a version of them immortalized in memories, and they could never change that. And mental health and whatever, where do I start? So I'm just gonna say this, okay? So my issue with mental health, my stress that I've been going through with my life, I've been forced to, you know, be on my own. Parents don't really help me too much, and I've been forced to be all out there in the wild and everything, and it just manifested itself into this salad of the Caesar salad of mental health issues. You know, I got epilepsy, I got fucking dissociation, derealization, all of that stuff. Now, you are right. Your mind is the strongest tool. You can just take control over everything. And if you convince yourself hard enough, yes, you can make yourself believe that you're okay. And I've tried that and it works. The moment I decided to, you know, take control of things and realize that, yes, I am in control, things started changing. I realized I could do so much. You know, even when I felt like it was out of hand, I couldn't deal with anything. I thought I needed medication. I thought I needed counseling and therapy. But then, you know, I took it under control. Though I want to ask you this question, all right?
Yeah.
When you feel like you have a void in your life, right? Like you were talking about goals, right? I've been in a place where I was like I had goals set up and I've achieved, you know, happily I could say I've achieved like around 90% of those goals over the past year. And I got there. But after getting there, I forgot why I wanted to be here so badly. Like I reached the destination that I wanted to get to. All right, I'm here now. But somehow I feel like it's not enough. Or it's like as if I'm not happy, you know? I still feel like something's missing. And I keep thinking
Okay.
about what I could have done. Always. I just keep thinking about like, okay, I wish I did this, or I lost so much time, or whatever. I invested in the wrong people. And yeah, like how do you deal with that? What do you do with that?
Right. Thank you for talking. It's a great question. There are a couple of things that you said. I would disagree with control. I don't think that's what I just want to say that I'm not talking about controlling the mind. I'm talking about observing the mind, which could be something slightly
Yeah,
different.
I'm
So
sorry, probably
just for
I
this,
misunderstood.
no, it's fine. It's just for the sake of people that are on the call. Just I always try to be clear, and it's fine. Everybody sees it how they see it. This isn't a wrong or right. This is just about my teaching and what we're doing here. From the fact of your goals don't fulfill you, well, from of course not, because a goal is an outside thing. So what I'm talking about here is that happiness, joy, fulfillment are an inside job. What we do is we project them onto the world and think they exist out there. Now, when you get there, you may have a temporary relief, a momentary relief, a feeling of something of satisfaction, but it'll be so temporary that suddenly you'll think that, oh, well, my happiness wasn't in that goal. What I wanted wasn't in that goal. I need to move on and find another goal. So what I'm telling you and what I'm teaching you here is that is because it was never outside of you in the first place. It can't be outside of you. It has to come from you. That doesn't mean to say don't have goals. You can have a goal, but what you would then do is you'd hold it lightly and not have any identification whether you got it or not. It would be like, oh, great, I got it, or no, I didn't. What you would stop doing is applying your well-being to that goal. Now, so within that, on your journey along this, on your journey of getting to the goal, you would experience all different emotions because you would be living in the moment, experiencing life, rather than experiencing a destination where your happiness lives. Because your happiness doesn't live in a destination, your happiness lives within you, and that's the only place it can live. So what you're doing is you're going outside in for your well-being, and your well-being can only be inside out. Again, it's that flip. It's that going from one state of being to another. Nothing can exist outside of you can only exist within you. Okay, when you apply it to your outside, you're actually creating disharmony because you're turning away from this truth. So it'd be really interesting for you with your journey and everything you've done and everything you've seen and you've overcome to begin to see that there is only this moment, that happiness only lives within you in this moment, and that no goal can contain it. Although it's great to still have them and play in the world. So a goal will now become like a plaything. It won't become something that's serious that contains your happiness. Is that
So,
helpful?
yeah, it does help. Like, you're saying that I should focus more on the journey instead of the destination?
Absolutely, but even more than that, on the moment. Just be in the
Hmm.
moment. Have the goal, experience the moment. No, the goal doesn't contain your happiness, and see what happens. Just see what happens. Play with it again.
Like I've tried, like there were times where like, okay, the goal has been achieved. I enjoyed my momentary, like temporary, moment of happiness. All right. And then I move on to seeking other goals. I've been doing that for a while, but then it gets like exhausting where I cannot seem to find a goal that I really want to do, or something like it just gets confusing at times.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. The
but
mind
like
is
I try to,
confusing.
it is really, really confusing.
That's why we
My
try to
God.
take less notice of it. So goals have become something you become attached to in your mind. So then observe yourself wanting a goal and see what it's like to be without one. Always play with things,
Yeah,
So
I try to trick myself sometimes, actually.
yeah, yeah. So just do that and see how that goes, and maybe let us know in a couple of weeks or something.
Will do, will do.
Oh, thank you for speaking.
Oh, thank you for having me,
Oh, I
actually.
really appreciate it. Thank you. I'm not sure if we've got Jem back yet or not. Oh my God.
Oh my God, I've been on 3 different phones. I've changed my internet. I think it's just the whole co-host thing. At the moment, there seems to be a bit buggy. I'm so sorry, but
Oh, that's
you can
okay.
try and invite me back as co-host, but I think it might maybe screw it up
I think
again.
I'm just gonna leave it as it is.
Wow, I had so many things I wanted to say, and I'm just like wiping the sweat off my brow. I've been running around the house like trying to get old iPhones out.
Oh, I can't imagine the stress.
Oh, I mean,
It's all thought, Jem. It's all
and there's
thought.
fucking Twitter. Oh dear.
Oh, okay. Deep breath.
So, well, one of the
Did you get to listen to any of it, or have you just been
I
running
could hear the whole
around?
thing.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, brilliant question, Yahtzee, and also thanks, Sol, for jumping in, being the hero that you always are. Yeah,
Always.
thanks for everything. One thing that always stuck with me, Molls, I was always trying to fix what I thought was wrong with my thinking. So whether I was anxious, whether I was depressed, I'd had all of these sort of skills and things through previous therapy that I was taught, and it was very confusing to try and fix what I thought was broken. And sometimes you think, oh, was that the right way to do it? And it's like, well, I've already got all this stuff that I think is wrong with me, and now I've got to remember how to fix it. And it's like, sometimes I was just like, I can't think today, because the more I think, the worse it gets, and it's just completely overwhelming. Probably similar to the conversation that we did when we spoke about meltdowns and breakdowns, where it just becomes, I imagine it like, 1 potato, 2 potato, 3 potato, 4, when you're stacking your hands on top of each other, the game when you play when you're a child. That's how I felt like it was. And the way that you explained it, and I always go back to it, and I think about it quite a lot, because it's probably the easiest way for me to get back to where I know I should be and where I really am, is that we as human souls, whatever, we are whole. We are so pure, bright, white, light energy, and all that happens is we take on this broken thinking and we believe it, whether we take it on, but we start to believe these thoughts because our mind's always trying to create the story to make things make sense. And you're going to be able to explain it in a much more sort of concise way. But when I remember that, actually, probably the reason I feel like that is because I'm believing some thinking, and I just need to not even remove it, but just not hold on to anything because nothing exists. Then I become free, and then I really remember, hey, it's really easy unless I fuck it up, you know, unless I choose to hold on to things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, at the deepest level, there isn't a you to hold on to anything. You know, it's like it's thought on thought on thought on thought on thought. And when we start exploring and uncovering that it's thought, it just tends to melt away a lot easier. What we tend to do with what gets us lost in mental illness is, imagine you have a fire, you want that fire to go out. Imagine that's your thinking. Well, if the logs are thoughts, you stop adding the logs to the fire for the fire to go out. You don't keep adding them because it's going to stoke the fire even more. It's going to keep on burning. Now, with thought, unfortunately, what we do before we understand something like this is we keep adding more logs, we keep adding more thoughts because we're having unhelpful, unhappy thinking. We need to try and think our way out of it. And what happens is if the flames of the feelings, that's why the feelings get out of control and get bigger and bigger because we're adding more by thinking, thinking, thinking. What we're doing here is the opposite, is we're turning away. That thought will still happen. We're thinking beings. Thought isn't going away, but we turn away from that thought and we stop adding logs to the fire and we begin to let the fire of feeling calm down. And that's where we become present and things start to change. So I think that's what you're talking about and what you're asking. Is that what you mean, Gems?
Yeah, it is. Just going back to that, it is only it's only our thinking that's broken, not us, basically.
Yes. Yeah. Well, the analogy that I always use, probably have said it on every call, is like we are the movie. Who we think we are, the character, the moles, the gem is the movie. Okay. Now the movie is playing out on the screen, so you have a screen that the movie is playing out on. That's consciousness. That's who we really are. You can put the craziest movie, the most violent movie on your television, and your screen is not harmed when you turn it off. So who we really are is the screen. What plays out in thought is the movie. I think that's quite a simple way. So the screen of awareness, the screen of consciousness plays out the movie of thought.
Yeah, when it's broken down and when you can, there will be an example that you'll hear. I mean, that's why I try and bring in things that I've heard you say before. But for everyone that's listening, there'll be something that you hear that you'll always remember, and it will make complete sense to you. And it's just really, really freeing. Moles, one of the things that someone asked me about depression actually was, you know, there's so many different labels, there's so many different types for all the different fancy pills and the different therapies and everything. For someone, say, that's got clinical depression or manic depression or seasonal depression, would you say that there's any difference really in any of these types of labels, or is it just pulling away from your sort of true self, in the same as anxiety? Let's sort of, it's all the same in a way.
Well, all mental illness is thought. It can't be anything else. Now, the level and depths of that can range from quite mild to very, very severe. And I think what has happened is we've labelled all those things differently, which is fine. That's what we do. And there'll be different solutions or apparent solutions for all the different things that we experience in feelings. But actually, most of them aren't solutions. They can be quite temporary. So what I would say is, whatever it is, it's understanding that it's thought, doing what you need to do to keep yourself safe. That's really, really important. If medication keeps you safe, if whatever it is that keeps your mind safe for temporarily, do it. But also, I would always advise some kind of exploration in this way, because you're going to uncover a deeper truth and start seeing things differently. But of course, everybody's going to see a label's a label, whatever it is. You know, it's the person who's going to be experiencing what they're experiencing. but the mind loves identity and labels, and the world loves identity and labels, so it's always going to label everything many different things. But it really does come. The beauty is the simplicity of this is that if all mental illness is thought and we can understand thought deeper and feel better, then in my opinion there's nothing that can't be helped by this. Everything's on the table. And it's just down to the exploration and the person, the difference that it makes.
Yeah, and I mean we've seen recently, just over the last, well, definitely over the last few years, but just the rise. It is an epidemic, with mental health. Even when you speak to sort of older people, they, back in my day, we didn't have this. You just got up and you got on with it. Whereas now people seem to almost own that label, own that illness as their identity. Oh, I can't do that because of my anxiety, or I can't. And I was like that before. But it was just an excuse. It was just something that I'd made up, but I really believed it. But it's just, everybody seems to have that label now, or they either really don't, or they find it very easy to sort of blame or confirm it around them, and they say, well, I'll always have this. It runs in the family, or my mum's got it, my sister's got it, whatever. So I think learning and moving away from every attachment is so important. And I've found, we just have conversations with people, and just asking questions really opens people's minds up. And I think having the ability to share something like this with lots of people, because everyone that's in here, they're regulars. They're always here, and everyone that comes in, they always stay the whole time. And I think people are really understanding it. And like you always say, you'll arrive when you're supposed to. I mean, it was probably the first 6 months I was cancelling calls all the time with you. I was, I'm ready. No, I'm not ready. I'm ready. And then it was just like, fuck it, let's go.
Yeah.
But it took quite a while. And now everything's different for me. I'm not, everything's not perfect, but I know it's not supposed to be perfect. Before, I thought I had to make everything perfect, because I thought life was about, being positive all the time. I was shoving the Secret and the law of attraction down my throat, and it was so much pressure. And now there's no pressure, because it just is, and it's lovely.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and that's wonderful. And it was simple. There wasn't anything for you to do other than have conversations and listen to things and read things and go on courses like this and sit on calls, and it just all fell away. See, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about a falling away. I'm not trying to get you to remember more stuff or do more things or add more content to the mind. What we're doing here is undoing all that, so it all falls away, so you come back to your true self, your authenticity, the truth of who you are. And going back to what you said earlier is the labels about, like, everyone wants to identify, and it's like, I'm this, I feel that. They label and use feelings as evidence to back up their stories of who they are. And they get so lost in them, and that identification becomes so strong that it then becomes something that you need to defend. And then we are where we are in the world today with all the cancel culture and everything else, because everybody's so sensitive about their identity. That's the ego. The true self doesn't give a shit. It's like, be who you want to be, do what you want to do. But the ego and the identification with self, that's a different story. The labels, it backs up the self. It keeps the character in place. The ego is a very fragile thing, don't forget. So it needs to always be securing its story. And what we're seeing in the world is that's what's happening. It's the ego securing the story over and over and over again when it doesn't need to. And it's really evident now. I mean, more than ever. We're like, wow, great. Diversification's a great thing, but not the identification with diversification. Diversification is the very nature of humanity. We're all different. And at the core, we're all the same. And what the world is doing, it's going further and further out into the world of form and diversification and identification, instead of going further and further in to where we're all the same. Because if we saw that, then all these problems would fall away and the world would be a much better place.
You're completely right. And that's all that's happened over the last few years as well, is everybody should identify as a certain group or have a certain label, because that's, in inverted commas, supposed to bring us together. Like, it's absolute ludicrous. I mean, we know that we've always sort of, fear generates profit, and it's, unfortunately, this world is about creating money. And we do live, when you look around us, everything's fear-based. You know, people are scared to go outside now. But I thought it was a joke. I saw a billboard on Twitter the other day, and it said, be careful, if you've had a cough for a couple of weeks, it might not be COVID, it might be lung cancer. And I just thought, bloody hell. I was like, give us a break, everybody. But that is what we have become used to. We're desensitized. We almost expect people to be miserable and sad now, and that's not what we're doing here at all. But yeah, the world is changing so quickly, and to have the ability to know that it's nothing to do with you is really important, I think.
I think to know there is no set world, there is no set person, there is no set feeling, there is no set mental illness, there is no set identity. It's all passing, it's all appearing and disappearing. So it just loosens it all up a little bit. That to me, that's the beginning of the exploration. Just loosen it all up a bit. See that it's not set. See that nothing's set in stone. We are fluid. We're not supposed to be stuck. And just go from there and start to observe thought. Like, it's such bullshit. When we begin to observe it, we really see that. Again, on many calls, I've said we've never ever had the conversation like, what is thought? We just accept thought. So this conversation begins to free it up because we explore it. I'm not saying I know what it is. I know it's an energy. I know it comes through me. I know I don't create it. It's deeper than that. I know I don't have to identify with it. But what a fun exploration, and what a freeing exploration to do that, to begin to explore what thought is, rather than this constant narrative and what thought is saying. We're changing it. We're going from the content of thought to the context of thought. We're going from what we think to the fact that we think. So we're going deeper. We always want to go deeper, deeper, deeper.
And it's very evidential from, I mean, we can both speak from experience. We've both had times where we've been in deep, dark places. But if we think about how we feel today and think about how we felt then, I know that my thoughts are completely different. Yes, I'll still have bad thoughts sometimes, but they are not in any way as sort of intense and as long. And when I look back, the only reason that they were is because I was sort of agreeing with them. I was accepting them. I was thinking, well, I must feel like this because I'm a shithead. This must be the way that I feel because of this has happened or whatever. And it's so interesting that as you learn to let go of what doesn't exist, what actually happens is you're not experiencing, you're just finding it really hard to explain it. I don't suppose you can read my mind, Molls.
Well, probably, but I know the things that I want to. It's just I get what you're saying, and I think other people probably do as well. The depth of it, it's so simple as well, which can be kind of mind blowing in its simplicity. And I want to just say the two things that began to change everything for me was I didn't need to be fixed. Okay, this isn't about fixing you. This isn't about there's nothing to fix. And the other thing was that I wasn't responsible for my thoughts. So, oh my God, that's not me doing that. I'm not a shithead. those two starting points were absolutely huge for me. So just start somewhere like that. Start in the simplicity and just see where it goes. You don't have to suddenly uncover your true self and become enlightened. It's just start there. Just start with some simple truths and see where it goes and see where the exploration takes you. Because that's all we did. You know, we heard something, we may have resisted it for a while. At some point, we came back into it. We heard something and our lives changed. And I believe that's available to everybody. You know, that isn't just for us. And just to remember, you're not going to find peace of mind in your mind. It doesn't exist there. It's deeper. So stop trying to control your mind. Stop trying to use your mind to find peace. You know, allow your mind to do its thing. Observe it and just see where life takes you. See what happens from there. You know, it's again another thing that is presence. Like, where are you? If you're all over the place in your future, your past, wherever you are in your head, try and just be where your body is. Come back into the moment. Again, presence is a beautiful thing. It teaches us so much. Again, it's just so simple and we make it so complicated, and we want to go back to simplicity. Know that if you're complicating it, you're in your head. Okay, you move away from that and come back to peace, come back to simplicity, and that will happen over and over and over again. That's what I do. I don't live in peace all the time. I come in and out. Sometimes I'm in complexity. I'm in my mind. I'm in my emotions, and then I come back and I'm in my heart, and I'm in my truth, and I'm at peace. Again, there's two states that I live in. The one where I'm seeing that I'm thought, and the other one where I'm believing that I'm thought. Two different states.
And I think you mentioned it I think it was last week, that a lot of people, they never get out of something mode. What's the word that you use, where they're always protecting themselves, and whether it's their ego, but they don't allow themselves to really just allow themselves to be. Basically, they're always kind of just got that security blanket ego around them, just trying to muddle through and protect themselves.
Yeah, I think the beauty of this understanding is, you see, there's not anything to protect. It's all part of the illusion. I think I want to end soon, because we've been on for a while. But what I want to give hope to is that you're not doomed. If you're listening to this and you're depressed, you're not doomed to live the rest of your life like that. I thought I was for a certain amount of time, and I wasn't. I came out of it. I know Jem probably thought she was. So there is hope, there is light, there is love, there is us, there is unminding. There's so many things out there that can help. So don't use the things that are out there in the world more. What I'm talking about when I'm saying there's so many things, there's so many people, there's so many spiritual understandings like this that can show you what's true. So move away from the world of form, move away from what you thought was going to help that doesn't, that you've maybe been doing over and over again, and try and explore something new, and trying to explore the truth of who you are, not the content of your mind, and realize that you can be free, and that you are loved, and that there is light.
That was beautiful. And it's so very true. Everyone that's here, thank you so much. Molls, I think you've been speaking basically on your own for an hour and 20 minutes. So should we do questions and things another day?
Yeah, I've just got one little thing to read, and then I'll let you do the finish off. Is that okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so true freedom is when all the stories, all the insights, all the realizations, concepts, beliefs, and positions dissolve. What remains is what you are, a vast, conscious, luminous space, simply resting in itself, not knowing a thing, at the point where all things are possible. And that's a quote by Enza Vita.
Oh, that's lovely. And that's so perfect. Wow. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody, for being here again with us. We'll be here again next week. We really, really appreciate all of you just being here, listening, sharing. If anything's particularly sort of stuck in your mind tonight, please share, make a tweet about unminding, as we want as many people to connect and come on the journey with us as possible. And thank you for spending your time. You know, time is so precious, and yeah, we appreciate it so very much. I'll post some links about the Medium article, and you can join our Telegram group as well. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining us. We couldn't do it without you. And if anyone that spoke, we really appreciate that too. And Gems, thanks for being a great co-host.
My pleasure when it works. But
when it works. Big love to everybody.
Yeah, lots of love, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.